Being a producer at ustwo isn't specifically a role where you're sat looking at spreadsheets all day and you're very kind of process heavy. I think the way that we work is that we try and make sure that we have enough process to support the creativity of the team, but we aren't so big that we need intense process from producers. It's quite nice because it gives you a bit more headspace to think about the creative side of projects as well as just the practical side of it. We don't have specific producers that handle specific parts of games, so you tend to look after like a whole project in its entirety, which is really great because it means you get to work with all the different departments and you get to see the whole thing come to fruition. It's not like there's a company and you really have to just sort of slot into your space. It's not too constrained by size or process. It's one where people can come in and make really exciting things. We're quite a collaborative studio in general, and we try to mix the teams up so that people aren't just sat in their disciplines. Everyone talks a lot, they get each other's feedback. And as a producer, that's no different. You're still really involved in the day-to-day kind of discussions about, well, like, what do you think of this art? What do you think of this level that we've made? You're not kind of siloed off from the creative process. Last year we released Monument Valley 2, which was it was a really exciting project. It was really challenging because it was working on a sequel which comes with specific risks of its own, but we kind of knew what we were making. So now that we've released that, we're really happy with it. It's kind of out in the world. We're taking some time now to kind of work out what we want to put out next. One of the things that we decided that we'd quite like to do is have smaller team sizes. So with Monument Valley, we had a team of about 15 or 16. Now we're kind of aiming for teams of around 8 or 9. And we're trying to make lots of different types of games. We don't just want to be the Monument Valley studio. We have lots of ideas about the potential of mobile games. The type of genres that we are interested in aren't really defined by the platform. It's more about what do we think that as a company we could have a really unique take on, and what could we bring to audiences that haven't necessarily seen that before or been able to access it in a way that we think we could let them. So I think one of my favourite things about working here is that not everyone comes from the same backgrounds and interests. For me, for example, I did an English degree. I didn't ever know or plan on working in games. It was just like something that I was really lucky to kind of be able to access a bit later on. There's people who've come from animation, there's people who've come from illustration, there's people who have games backgrounds, people with audio backgrounds, and generally I think everyone's interests are really diverse. We do things like we'll go to the theatre, we'll have film nights, we'll talk about books that we're reading. You know, we have shelves of books that maybe is partly me just dumping them everywhere. We love games, but we aren't solely defined by our interest in games. We're all constantly pushing each other to look for interesting, creative things outside of games in order to bring those back in and make projects that we work on, the content that we make, something that no other studio could make. You can't make original games if you're only looking at other games for inspiration. You're narrowing your pool of references constantly. So for us, I think we push ourselves to look as far away from games as possible before we kind of turn inwards and say, how does this affect the projects that we're working on? We're working on things that there isn't a template for. There's no blueprint for making the kind of content that we make for mobile, which brings a lot of challenges, and especially as a producer, when you're trying to plan for that, that can be quite difficult. What we're really trying to do is just be clear on like, what is it that we're trying to achieve? Why is it that if we've picked an idea and we're pushing forward with it, what's the excitement about it? And then for me, it's making sure that the team are clear on what their vision of that excitement is. Making sure that we just keep our focus on that, and then we'll plan it out to make sure that everything that we're doing is kind of multiplying in on what that excitement ultimately is.